Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the POMcast. I am the host of this fine show, Stephen Willis. I'm very thankful that you are here with me this morning, along with the smooth jazz of a nice Outback Bowl victory. Ole Miss 26, Indiana 20. We have notes. It was good. It really was. Today we're going to talk really about two things. We're going to start our exit interviews by position. Today we're going to do the quarterback. That'll be in segment 2. We're going to talk about the expansion needed of the playoffs, and I'll explain my position about that as well. That'll be segment 3. But right now, it's just a little catch-up time. Basically, Ole Miss men's basketball, they have a 2-game losing streak currently. They look better than they did last year, so it's not the same thing. But they need to pull themselves out of this. Alabama, the next game, also beat Tennessee, so they were probably better than we thought they were. But they ended up losing the game. Ole Miss 26-20. Victors over Indiana in the Outback Bowl, minus Elijah Moore, minus Jerry and Ely, minus Braylon Sanders, minus Kenny Yeboah. Like the top 4 weapons on the offense were gone. And Ole Miss won the game and found a way to put up 500 yards of offense anyway. It was quite impressive to see. The defense played really well Saturday until they kind of ran out of gas, which is expected because they play so few players, because this roster is in need of a turnover. That's what recruiting's about. That's what the transfer portal is about. It's what the grad transfer portal is about. They're in need of those players. So I think Ole Miss as a full team played 40 players Saturday against Indiana and beat them. And that was likely Lane Kiffin's best win of his short tenure in Oxford, Mississippi, defeating Indiana. They were playoff rankings number 11, as high as 7th in any particular poll. So there's hope. There's reason for optimism in Oxford. There's momentum that can be built off of. Marquez Dortch, a 4-star defensive back for 2022, committed last night. I mean, it's just all rolling, and everything is building on top of itself. That marketing genius that is Lane Kiffin is truly coming forward and pulling Ole Miss out of basically the doldrums of mistaking self-government. That's the problem. They made a hire that was kind of a poor hire, and there was booster factions infighting, and it manifested itself on the football field. On top of that, you had the NCAA investigation. And, a coaching scandal. I mean, the last 5 years was a long 2 decades. It really was. And Ole Miss fans needed this to happen. The turnaround to happen precipitously. Now, you might say, Steve, we only went 5-5, and that is true. But I would like to remind you that Saban's first year in Alabama, they only went 6-6 and had a loss to Louisiana Monroe. It can turn around quickly, and year 2 was Alabama's first undefeated season. I'm not saying we're going to go undefeated. I'm just saying that they're on schedule. That's all I'm saying. But they have a chance to be pretty good next year. Especially if John Rice comes back. He had a heck of a game in the slot. especially towards the end. He dropped that first pass, but that's expected. That was a hard catch to begin with, and you're dealing with all those nerves of never playing the position and trying to figure out what you need to do. It was a hard pass to start with, but as you saw with the end, it kind of happened. And he did a good job of just catching the ball with his hands. That 3rd down and 4 that he caught the pass over the middle, that was probably the play of the game, and most every one of his receptions resulted in first downs. It really was quite impressive. And if you want to, you can go to our YouTube page and look it up, and we have 2020 games on demand. The Indiana game, the Outback Bowl, is there. So if you're bored at work today and just want to put that on in the background, you can. That's on YouTube. Positively Ole Miss is the channel. You can catch us there. Let's do the whole spill. You can catch us on Twitter at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/POMcast. Like we said, YouTube, Positively Ole Miss. We have other stuff there like on-demand games and all the interviews all populate there. And on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. You can catch us on the audio podcatchers like Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. Those are just the major podcatchers. We are our minor ones as well, but it would take us the whole show to get there. But we do appreciate you listening. We had a big break. We needed to take a break. We had a chalet up in the mountains of Gatlinburg. It was very nice. Although it's not, I don't recommend people going up into the mountains if you have a balance problem, but I did anyway, and but it was very nice, and I needed the week off because this week is going to be such a busy year. There's so many things planned. I mean, as soon as this month. I mean, we're looking at purchasing the equipment maybe in this month, and we're going to be doing some painting and stuff in the palatial Central Florida studios, and it should look quite nice for you guys. It'll be unlike anything that is out there. We're trying to not make this look like a public access TV program. We're trying to not make this look like a Wayne's World, so just bear with us. But we also are forced to do this with a skeleton crew. So be mindful of that, but we're trying to give you a little bit more information, a little bit more of what you need. We're going to bring Chris Thrasher on the show in a couple of weeks, and we're going to start there. Anyway, this is the POMcast, Stephen Willis, Segment 2, Exit Interviews, coming soon, now.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
Welcome back to the POMcast. I am Stephen Willis. We are the POMcast, and we're having a great time today. You're You're asking, why? Hey, Steve, why is your show only 30 minutes long? Well, that's because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to give that back. And I also don't waste time talking about other things, other sports generally. So once we get done with what you want to listen to, you're free to move on about your day. But anyway, this segment, we're going to start our exit interviews segment, basically. We are going to go by position group, and we're going to close with coaching. And today we start on quarterback. And that is such a mystery a little bit to cover quarterbacks in the beginning here, because Matt Corral played 7 games at an elite level. We'll give you, I mean practically a 100 level. So 7 times 100 is 70, 700. The Auburn game, he struggled a little bit coming off the Arkansas game. So that was just we'll give him an average grade on that one. We'll give him a 70 on that one. So we're at 770. And then he had his 2 disaster games that we're going to give him a 0 on. So if you divide that by 10, that becomes 77. So that should be a C+. But we are going to give him a B-. And why are we going to do that? Well, the recovery time after the Arkansas disaster game, the Auburn game was just okay. It didn't look right. You can tell it was still there mentally. It was still hovering over him. After the LSU disaster game, he came back against Indiana and had a really good game with all of his weapons sitting out. So we're going to put him, like the numbers say he should be a 77 as C+, but we are going to put him at B- at quarterback. And you can there's obviously room to grow and room to move on, basically, and get better. And he has a bright future. I mean, his future is blindingly bright. I mean, we see some betting lines come out that he is on Heisman lists for next year already. I think Circus Sports put him at plus 1,900 to win the Heisman. I mean, he's on the list. He's about 15th on the list, but he's on the list. And I mean, how long has it been since we had somebody on the list there? So that's where we're looking at, a B-. And you go back to games like Florida and Alabama, he really performed well. I mean, even stuff that's not in the box score. Now, the problem is the reason those disaster games happened was a lot that was going on that he was getting away with against Florida and Alabama. Now, people will say, and they have a unbelievable point, how can you get away with something against Florida and Alabama and not get away with it against Arkansas? Well, it comes down to the defensive system and what they want to do. And Arkansas just figured out that drop 8 was kind of his kryptonite. And those no-look passes went to Arkansas players. Now, he learned from that. He grew from that. He moved on to the next step. People tried to drop 8. He punished them. Saturday, Indiana tried to drop 8 several times. He punished them. He took what was given him and played a fine game. Experience is the best teacher. People used to say in the military, a shotgun is a self-teaching tool. What does that mean? Well, if you shoot a shotgun wrong, it's going to kick and you're going to feel it. You will learn where to hold the shotgun based off of the pain. It's a self-teaching tool. And that drop 8 thing, that game, was a self-teaching tool. Against LSU, there was a lot of combo coverage. They were playing a little man, little zone, and it just confused him. He made throws that he thought was going to be there that turned out it wasn't, and they got him a couple times. He actually course corrected into the second half. In the second half, he was fine. But in the first half, they kind of got him. But the Arkansas game, you have a situation where he was down the whole game. I mean, it didn't matter. It was one of those things like Shane Falco in The Replacements talking about quicksand. That's what that game looked like. The harder you struggled against the pressure, the going down, the worse it got. And doing that, it was kind of in position to beat him twice against Auburn. Now, Kevin Steele and Auburn had a good defense and all of that, but Matt Corral still was not Matt Corral. People want to say he played well that game because it proved some kind of point to them. He did not play well. At best, he played average. And at worst, he played bad, but better than the week before. I think a lot of it is comparison shopping there. Against LSU, he was able to bounce back. They got him for about a half. He figured it out. It was growth. It was maturity. And we're talking about a kid that last year lost the job because he was doing his own thing at the position. And doing things like that. Too much freelancing. Too much swag. And all that. That means he wasn't being necessarily coached hard enough to do it. But too much freewheeling. Everybody talks about him telling the story of him calling his own plays against Mississippi State 2 years ago, and don't see that stuff like that is probably directly why he lost the job in the first place. Just wasn't there, wasn't mature, he needed to grow up, and he did. You're talking about a kid in the last year that is just shot up. Because, I mean, last year was a good teacher. And he's performed this year. I mean, a B- at quarterback is pretty good at Ole Miss right now. I mean, it could have been far worse. But it was not. And with that, he has the ability to take another step. That B- grade. If you remove those disaster games and just make your bad games the Auburn game, because that's what it should look like. The bad game should look like the Auburn game this year. And that's fine, but it won't be a disaster game. I mean, Ole Miss this year was so close to 8-2. So close. But they were also so close to 4-7 or 4-6 or 3-7. Remember, Kentucky missed an extra point. Now, Vanderbilt was a blowout. South Carolina was in doubt until the clipboard threw. So it could have gone both ways. It's about little things. And this is a team that is figuring out how to win. This is the first time that I can remember watching the game against Indiana where the defense made the stop they needed to make. Even though they were out of gas, and they absolutely were out of gas. When Luke Ogun missed the extra point, I know everybody was thinking the worst at that moment because the defense has not historically made that stop. And then you have a true freshman getting a sack. Quentin Bivens getting a quarterback hurry. Tyler Knight breaking up a 3rd and 18 pass. It was a good game by the defense. It really was. It really was. And not only that, it was needed. Statistically, they were way down there. But like we told you before this season, That's some of Wesley McGriff's boys, some of Mike McIntyre's boys, and some of DJ Jerkin's boys. That's 3 coordinators, 3 systems on one team. Lazy reporters, lazy people covering the team ignore the fact that there is not one football player. There are several football players, and they need to fit what you are doing. It is the most important thing. Whatever Wesley McGriff was doing, which was, I believe, was a 4-3, sort of, and Mike McIntyre didn't really work, except that Momo Sanogo was able to transition between the two because he's more of a 3-4 linebacker. Well, Mike McIntyre runs a 3-4, puts Sam Williams outside linebacker, so you have these big, brooding linebackers. The way they played, since you were asking the linebackers to go from A gap to B gap, it wasn't as difficult as now when you're asking them to go sideline to sideline. We're playing a multiple defense now. Those players don't necessarily fit. We had trouble against the run because sideline to sideline, we don't have the speed to really make it, and our interior defensive line was very weak. So we were soft up the middle and we were slow to the edge, and that's a bad place to be. Anyway, coming up, segment 3, POMcast. Expand the playoff? See you in a little bit.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
Welcome back to the POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for listening. Now, we're going to take this segment to say that this show's position, and remember, this show is always for Ole Miss. We're not for individuals necessarily. We are for Ole Miss. It's one of those things, we're for the Ole Miss coach because they are the Ole Miss coach in the moment they stop, the moment it stops. And this show is going to take a position, and the position is it is time for the playoffs to expand. Well, why should an Ole Miss show care about that? Well, basically, parity in college football has been exasperated by the playoff. So everybody's going to Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. All the recruits are going there. So if you expand the playoff and do that and give more opportunity to other teams, that will take away some of those recruits that are going to school there that are only going there for the playoffs. So let's say Ole Miss gets 25 players and their best player is 179. Well, if you expand it to 8 and Ole Miss has a chance to reasonably get there, Alabama's 25. They might only get 20 players that they want. 5 players go elsewhere. 10 players go elsewhere. Now, their players are going to still be good. I'm not saying they're going to be good, but they're not going to be elite. because more players are going to get spread around to more teams. And what that will do is make the top a little worse, make the middle a little better, and give them a chance to join in. I think we want a 16-team playoff. You can use the bowls. They are opt-out and meaningless, basically as an end-of-the-year thing as it is currently. They're basically the first game of next year where it was used to find out what holes you need. It's like a dress rehearsal to see how you need to attack the transfer market. But you need to expand the playoffs. You need to get it away from Clemson and Alabama and Ohio State. And honestly, Oklahoma. Notre Dame got in there, but I'm not good, okay. But they've been twice. So maybe they belong in there as well. But this show is for a 16-team playoff. You can get to 8-team playoff using the existing New Year's 6 bowls. You can get to a 16 playoff. What is that? That's by adding 4 games. And they can be bowl games like the Outback, the Citrus, the Texas, whatever that bowl is called that's out in San Francisco, the Almond Bowl or whatever it is, the California Bowl, the one that's in Levi Stadium. But that's how you can do that. And that'll make the bowl games more profitable for the company. That'll prevent more opt-outs and will give people more quality football to watch at the end of the year. And also, it'll make bowls tougher to get into because those 16 teams, those 8 of those teams are going to play in the next round of bowls. 4 of those teams are going to play in the semifinals. 2 of those teams are going to play for it all. And I'm almost to the point. I know this will never happen, but for the sake of college football, keep it a 10-game schedule, so you're not overworking them. Either that or pay the players. I'm all for paying the players, but also players need to recognize that you starting to opt out and do the things that are very selfish and mercenary-like to your university. I am not going to cover you the same way that as a old school student athlete. I'm not going to do that. You've made this decision. I'm going to be fairly hard on you when I need to be. Not going to pick on you because I wouldn't pick on a professional player. But we do pro mindset at Ole Miss. This is going to be a professional type podcast and show because there's no sense otherwise. Like we told you, our goal is to provide access and get people following the program and give you something to enjoy following it on, because it's not several other things trying to fill airtime. It's just Ole Miss. And because of that, we're going to try and build the program up as best we can. We're going to take a loss and not necessarily figure out how we can improve the next week. What happened that's keeping the program down? And then we can build up next season. What do we need to build up? We need to look at it really analytically whenever you deal with that. Need to be science-based when you deal with that. If you're soft inside and slow on the edge, that's a problem against the run, no matter who you're playing. You're going to have to be creative to stop it, but maybe next year we'll find a way to get that done, and we have a ton of defensive players. By next year, we're playing 40 this year. We're probably going to play 52 next year. I mean, we did not substitute on the offensive line at all during Indiana. But that's really our goal, expanding the playoff. Because that'll help Ole Miss in the end. And that's all we care about. Anyway, thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back tomorrow. This has been the POMcast. I'm Stephen Willis. Hotty toddy.